When I was in high school, I saw the same therapist as a girl in my grade who bullied me. Now, she was in a group of friends who were all bullies, and she wasn't necessarily as bad as the rest of them, but she was 100% complicit in all of their awfulness. For the sake of this story, let's call her Amy. Over the course of our time together, naturally, I would talk to my therapist about these girls sometimes because they were awful to me, and it was part of my life. And every time I brought them up, my therapist would make like scary, accurate observations about them. She would seem to have like the best insight, the most understanding of their perspective. For a while, I was like, oh my God, you're such an amazing therapist. You have the best insight. Then it got to a point where I would be talking about other stuff or just like other people at my high school, and my therapist would bring up these girls completely unprompted. I didn't know why at the time, but it just felt like she wanted to talk about them. So for a while we did. Like, again, they were a big part of my high school experience, so it felt very relevant to my life and relevant to be talking about in therapy. And then one day I got to the waiting room in therapy and I was sitting there and the white noise machine was on. There was always a white noise machine that would drown out the sound of her when she was in session. And our therapy time was like, I don't know, like 5 p.m. or something. And it came to be 5 p.m. and then 5 p.m. went and my therapist did not come to get me. So I was confused as to whether she was like in session or where she was. So I did the thing that I thought was reasonable at the time, and I turned off the white noise machine and I went to stand by the door to hear if she was in session with someone. Imagine my surprise when I put my ear to the door and hear my therapist talking to Amy, because obviously I was going to recognize Amy's voice. I shit you not, I was in the waiting room fully freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing the same therapist as this girl that I've been talking about in therapy for months. Soon after I made that discovery, my therapist ended the session with Amy and ran out to come grab me. But the problem is I had not yet turned back on the white noise machine. So my therapist immediately clocked that and knew something was up. And eventually I just kind of had to ask her, wait, do you also see Amy in addition to me? And she was like, yeah, I do. And it dawned on me that after all this time of me assuming that she had just like the best natural insights about this group of girls, it was instead her taking material that Amy had given her in their sessions and bringing it into our sessions. We had a bit of a spat about it because I wasn't mad that she had never told me. Obviously, like doctor-patient confidentiality, she should not be telling me about her other patients. But I was upset about the fact that like she had genuinely deluded me into thinking that like these were just like natural conversations and not her coming from this immense place of authority. And I was also thinking, is she bringing my material into her sessions with Amy? Like, am I private? Am I protected? My therapist ignored all of this and was just upset that I had turned off the white noise machine and kept hammering home how I was the one who had violated someone's privacy, not her. Funny enough, I think the next week at school, I ended up mustering up the courage to go to Amy and say, hey, I think we see the same therapist. Believe it or not, we actually kind of bonded over it because she didn't love her either. So it was kind of this weird, like, we're not so different, you and I situation. Anyway, my mom made me keep seeing that same therapist for a while, even though she was genuinely deranged and should have been disbarred. But I like to think that after that, Amy and I had a little bit of an understanding between the two of us, and she wasn't really that mean to me ever again. I'm very curious to hear what you would have done in my shoes because this was such a predicament and I don't know if I did the right thing or if I could have done something to even more maximize the drama.
Am I the arsehole for being mad that my boyfriend only follows Instagram models? Story time. One day I'm at my boyfriend's house and we'll call my boyfriend Steve. We're sat in the living room, his mum and dad were there, we're watching a film, and Steve literally has the attention span of a gnat, so he doesn't really watch films, but he was scrolling through his Instagram stories, just watching what the world was up to. So I was looking over his shoulder being a little nosy girl, and I realised that every single story was from like an Instagram model. Either that or it was like all the hot girls from our school. It was bikini pic after bikini pic. Now don't get me wrong, girlies, post your content, get that back. And the longer it's going on, I'm like, oh my God, this is a lot. This is getting quite embarrassing actually. And I was getting so wound up just watching him flick through these stories. Steve got up to go to the bathroom. So I started to unfollow all of them whilst he was on the toilet. I'm like a whippet. Listen, I'm not normally one to go on his phone, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And I was about to be bold with this. I had nothing to hide. So when he came back, I just kept hold of his phone and carried on unfollowing girls. Now you may think I'm being a little bit dramatic here, but these were the only people he was following. Like some of his friends weren't even in his following list. So he goes, excuse me, what the hell do you think you're doing? And I'm just there like, oh, I'm just following the girls. And I just remember saying, is that going to be an issue for you? Or... He got so pissed off with me. He started acting as if I had betrayed him for unfollowing these girls. Steve, baby, get your priorities right. He literally turned to me and was like, why would you do that? I don't know. insane. I said, you literally have a girlfriend that you pose with all the time. Like, it's kind of embarrassing to have a following list that looks like that. I can't really remember what happened in this section, but I just kept saying it's embarrassing. Like, none of them follow you back. And this motherfucker has the audacity to turn around and say, well, they used to follow me back. Steve, babe, no, they didn't. Stop trying to inflate your ego. So I thought that, like, we were just gonna argue about this and it was gonna, you know, like, be done with. We were just gonna argue, he'd stop following the girls, blah, blah, blah. So this next bit left me in literal disbelief. This man takes his phone back off me and asks me if he can follow them back. What do you mean? Please bear in mind that I had just unfollowed them all. Honestly, the audacity is kind of admirable though. Like, imagine him wanting to follow these girls back so badly that he's now asking for my permission. So I say to him, like, oh my god, of course you can follow them back. Like, that's not an issue at all. He's like, oh, really? Thank you. But if you do that, I will literally get on a train and go home right now. Anyway, this was literally like 2 years ago. I would probably deal with this a lot more differently now. But I think this is such an interesting topic. Like, please do let me know if you find following like Instagram models or girls on Instagram is a big red flag. Personally, it doesn't really matter to me that much unless it is like this type of situation where they are the only people that he is following.
Now that the whole Risa Tisa thing has like calmed down, I have a story of my own. And don't worry, this is not going to be 50 parts. It's probably not even going to be 3. I'm going to try to be careful the way I word this because I know her friends watch my videos and report everything back to her. This is about my brother's ex-girlfriend from my side of the story. He's not ready to tell his side. That's completely understandable. But, y'all, when I say it impacted everybody in this household down to my baby sister, it was bad. I think this was enough to call it an abusive relationship. Even though it wasn't physically abusive, it was definitely mentally abusive. So back in April of last year, I made a video talking about, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because my brother finally has a girlfriend after all these years. Mind you, this was his first ever girlfriend, so this is probably the worst thing that could have ever happened to him. So I was making a video and she comes in like as I'm making the video and I was like, oh my gosh, hi, so nice to meet you, whatever. Nice, cool interaction. She seemed like genuinely nice. I was like, okay, she's kind of pretty, she's nice, like, okay, I can see them working out. So fast forward maybe a couple days later, she's like, hey, I really want to get to know you, so let's go get her nails done. I was like, okay, cool. All the way to get her nails done and all the way back, she was just talking about my brother and like the things that he was doing that she did not like. Mind you, they haven't been dating for like maybe more than 2 weeks. At first I was with her, I was like, oh my gosh, girl, you know how men are, like, don't worry, I'll watch them for you. But then she started saying some like weird things. Like, one of the things she said was like, oh, he looked at another girl when I was like in the bathroom. I was like, okay, like, this was when I started to pick up, like, this girl's a little bit weird. And then she goes, oh my gosh, she's always talking to other girls. That's so disrespectful. And I'm looking at her like, are you being, like, for real right now? Or... So at this point, I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I know my brother. I know he is not that type of person. He has never had a girlfriend. No way he would mess it up within the first week. So fast forward a couple weeks later, me and my brother make a TikTok and he just is in it for maybe like 2 seconds. The video is still up. I'll like put it to this video. I just made a little hair video, went to sleep, and I was woken up at 3 a.m. My brother is coming in looking scared. He's sweating. I was like, Tinsy, what's going on? He's like, you have to delete the video right now. Like, you can't post that. Why'd you post me? I was like, dude, you're literally always in my videos. What was wrong with the video? So he comes to me talking like, oh my gosh, she's saying that she's gonna hurt herself because people in the comments are calling me hot. I'm like, so at that point I was like, okay, obviously I don't want her to herself, so I turned off the comments. I was like, I can't really take down the video because I had a sponsorship. At that point I was not getting no sponsorships, but I did not want to take down the video because it took me forever. But then again, I did not want her to hurt herself, so I was like, you know, she's like, okay, I guess that's fine. What do you mean I guess that's fine? Mind you, she didn't have social media because one of her exes cheated on her through social media, so she only had Instagram. So her friends were telling her these things. Like, this is why I said her friends watch my TikToks and report back to her. So at that point, I did not like her. I did not like her whatsoever. I had a test the next morning. I couldn't even get to the test. Like, the next day, I messaged my parents. I was like, this girl's not good. I literally said that. So I was like, hey, I'm trying to be supportive or whatever. So I pretended to, like, be okay with her, right? She was in theater. She's a theater kid. So she was like, hey, do you want to come sit through one of my auditions? I was like, I don't really like you, but sure, I'll try to make it work for the sake of my brother. The whole time, she was talking about this one girl. Like, she was literally obsessed with her. She was calling her a C word, the W word. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like, oh my gosh, she's so obsessed with me. She's so racist. I'm like, okay. girl, I don't like you even more now, because what the and then after she asked me if I wanted to go over her friend's house, and I was like, I don't really know your friends, but like, my mom was like, just go, because, you know. I was like, okay, I'll go. The whole time, it was really weird. I was the only black person there. I felt like I was in an episode. I was in the movie Get Out. I was like, y'all, I gotta get out of here. Like, fast forward to July. She keeps trying to hang out with me, and I keep making excuses. I was like, I got band. I got parades. I can't. So basically, in July, my cousin came out because I used to live in Kansas. They still live in Kansas, and we really don't get to see each other. So, like, in July, during the summer, is when we, like, all get to hang out and stuff. The whole first day my cousins are here, like, my brother is just on his phone. He's not really paying attention. I know he was looking forward to his cousins coming down because we had been planning it since the last summer. So I was like, hey, if you don't tell her, like, hey, I'm a little busy right now, I can't really text you, I want to spend time with my family, I'm gonna do it myself. Mind you, she doesn't know all the things that my brother has been telling us about her, like all the things that she says, all the like rules and regulations. He told us that he couldn't watch anime anymore because one of her exes cheated on her watching anime.
Girl, what the fuck is you talking about?
He took down all his posters, everything. My brother has literally played video games since he was 3. He cannot play video games anymore because her ex cheated on her online on a video game. Like, what? So my brother would come home and tell us all this stuff, and she would just think like we still think that she's this perfect little angel. So I was like, hey, if you don't tell her that you want to spend time with your family, I'm gonna tell her, and everything's about to get out. He was like, no, you can't. I'm gonna tell her. And then an hour goes by, still texting. I was like, okay, I mean business. So I was like, hey, I hope you understand this like more than reasonable request. It's not really a request, I'm telling you. I was like, my brother has been looking forward to his cousins coming down, and I would appreciate it, like, you just give us some time together. Then she replies, oh, okay, I understand, I'm sorry, like, I didn't mean to do that. Minutes later, I look over my brother's shoulder, and I see her saying, oh my gosh, your sister is so disrespectful, I don't like her anymore, you need to tell her off. I was like, oh, you wanna go there? Well, I messaged her again, and I was like, hey, I'm seeing what you're telling my brother. And then I just spilled everything. I said, I know how you've been talking to him. I don't like it. I know what you've been saying about us. I don't like it. I said, I've been making excuses to hang out with you because I generally do not like you. And she would respond very respectfully and then go and text my brother that I was a B and I was disrespectful and that you need to cut me off. Like, I forgot to add something, but she also said that my brother couldn't hold his baby sister because he couldn't text her while he was holding her. She also said that he couldn't drive me around because he wasn't texting her while he was driving me around. So, like, I sent a bunch of voice messages. I was like, you're not his mother. You don't get to tell him what he cannot do. Like, this is my brother. I love him. I'm going to protect him. I don't care if this is not my relationship. I see it. You need to stop. So my cousins are telling me what to say, and I'm like, just give me a moment. I go in my closet, and I go off. Meanwhile, while I'm doing this, she's telling my brother all type of things. Like, I'm calling her crazy. I'm calling her a psychiatric patient when I literally have the proof right there. So at the end of the night, they end up breaking up. It was my mom's birthday the next day, and she was supposed to come over, but then she's like, I'm not coming over anymore. So she's like, no, why would I come over? Oh my God. So I told her to come over. She's like, no, why would I come over when I know you're all gonna gang on me? Because at this point, like, my aunts were down. They were like, ooh, what's happening? Like, my dad was like, it's about time you told her off. Like, everybody was giving me a high five. I was like, I know. So they break up, and that should have been the end of it. Like, she wasn't a good person. Okay, goodbye. On to the next. It wasn't. A month later, they get back together, and it becomes 30 times worse. I'm gonna have to make a part 2 because this video is already long. This was all happening in real time. Like, y'all would see me not posting or, like, just seem out of it because this was happening. My brother ended up moving out and stuff like that. Like, ooh, it was so bad. I have to make sure my brother is okay with me telling this next part because it's literally, it makes me sick every time I think about it.
I broke up with my boyfriend of 8 years right before he proposed. Get ready with me, and I'm gonna freaking tell you why. A little bit of a backstory. We were together all 4 years of high school and then all 4 years of college. We had been having some issues, and we were having like those heart-to-heart talks where you need to figure everything out in your life because I felt personally that we were on 2 completely different paths. I had goals for myself, things that I wanted to do, places I wanted to go, and he necessarily just wanted to fish and hang out with his friends. He wasn't ready to grow up, essentially. We broke up after I graduated college, and we completely ended things, or I did. We had been getting into arguments quite a bit, but for our anniversary, he didn't remember. at all. I'm tired of constantly having to remind him to get me a freaking birthday card or anything like that. So after we had been fighting so much, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna say anything. I told him I had nothing planned for the day. I was working 2 jobs in college in a sorority and going to school full time. And I had the whole day off our anniversary just to see what he would do. And he goes, I'm going to fish with my brother. Okay. And say another freaking word about it. I let it go. I let it be. Didn't say anything the next morning. And I went and drove to his house because he didn't take his truck. And I went and put a happy anniversary card on his truck. And that's the only way he remembered. Just tell you, this wasn't just like a month anniversary. This was our 7-year anniversary. So that he freaked out when he got home, realized he had missed our anniversary, tried to make it up to me, tried to take me to dinner, and I said no. I didn't want to. So after that, things got pretty bad, I would say. We would just argue all the time. I was getting flown to Texas to take senior pictures in May. So right before I left for Texas, that I needed some time and some space and that he needed to give that to me so I could think about things and really figure out what I freaking wanted. The dumbass that I am, I decided to come home from Texas. He picked me up from the airport and I was like, okay, we've been together so long, like we can make this work. We'll try again. Freaking idiot. Now, the night of my college graduation, and we went out to eat with my family, and his phone is getting absolutely blown up. I mean, blown up. And I was like, who is that? Like, what's going on? Why is someone blowing your phone up? It's his freaking mom. Okay? His mom. And he doesn't want to tell me what's going on. He wants to hide it from me. And eventually he deletes the text messages from her to where I can't read them. But I never really had any issues. We didn't necessarily get along all the time, but I'm me and that does happen. But she went off about me, was talking bad about me to him. He had said that I was going to be coming over and staying at their house for the night. And she basically told him not to bring my greedy ass over there anymore. What? Weeks later, I was at the house playing on his iPad. He falls asleep, so what the frick do I do? Go through it. He might have deleted those messages with his mom off his phone, but he wasn't smart enough to delete them off the freaking iPad. Luckily, she had texted him saying that I was greedy and he could do so much better than me and that I'm a liar and all of these things, all because I charged his brother for prom pictures because I'm a full-time photographer. And that I should have given him a discount because family doesn't do that to family. She goes on to say is that they weren't gonna use me anyways. So let me get this straight. You had just said family doesn't charge family, but me being a part of the family, you weren't going to use me to take the prom pictures anyways? So you're mad at me for what? Because you used me and I charged you for my service? Something that I had just went full-time doing. I went full-time taking pictures March of my senior year of college. So I was less than 2 months being full-time under my belt. So yeah, I charged you for prom pictures and I'm sorry that I didn't give you a discount. I just couldn't be okay with being in a family that doesn't necessarily choose you or support you or wanted that. A chosen family. This is not my blood. This is a family that I was going to be getting married into, essentially. So I decided, like, I want more for myself. Like, there are so many other people out there, and I don't have to deal with this. Like, I'm freaking 21 years old. Why would I have to put up with this? Someone out there will treat me so freaking good. And here's the thing. He didn't defend me at all to his mom. Did not defend me. And I was just not okay with that. About to leave for the beach for 2 weeks with my friends, with my parents, all of those things. My best friend had texted me and was like, hey, like, I don't want to ruin this if this is what you want, but I know you've been on the fence about it. But he's going to buy a ring while you are at the beach for 2 weeks, like, to propose. And I said, oh, baby, hell no. Like, I cannot do this. I have to get out. Like, that was the final straw for me. Hearing those words saying, like, oh, he wants a future with me. And I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't. Text him and ask him to come over so we can talk. And Essentially, I told him everything and told him I wasn't okay with stuff, and I broke up with him right before he went and bought an engagement ring. So he did not take it very well at all. It was a mess for a really long time. He started telling people that I cheated on him, that all of these things were freaking happening. He actually threatened to leak my nudes. Yep, my friend that works at the police station had to text him and get involved because he was threatening to leak them. And I was like, I mean, baby, if you gonna leak them, at least give me a heads up to where I can leak them first, and then I'll start my OnlyFans career. Like, just give me a heads up, please.
Am I the astronaut for bailing on anniversary plans with my boyfriend last minute for a friend's emergency? My boyfriend, 21 male and I, 20 female, had fancy dinner plans and tickets to the movies to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. We were both super excited about it and had planned it a while ago. However, an hour before our reservation, I got a message from my close friend. He texted me saying he was having a family emergency and he needed some support or someone to talk to right now and asked me to come over. I've been friends with this person for years and I've always been there to support him and cheer him up as he has some family and home issues. So I called my boyfriend who was driving back from work to tell him we'd have to cancel because I have to go be there for a friend, and he got mad even though I told him it was out of my hands. I then hung up because I didn't want him to carry on driving and being on a call, especially if he's angry, and said I'll speak to him later. Cut to me coming home a few hours later and he was pissed. We then got into an argument and he said that I prioritized another guy over him and that my friend is a grown man who could have waited until the next morning to have me come over. He also got more mad when I couldn't tell him what the emergency was that ruined what was meant to be a special day, even though that's my friend's personal information and it's not my business to share. I felt that it was very insensitive of him to not understand why I had to go and be there for a friend of mine. And yeah, we lost a bit of money for tickets, but we can just reschedule. But I can see why he's frustrated, as it's our first anniversary and he had planned it a while ago. Plus, I got angry at him for being insensitive, which only heated the argument and made it worse. It's been a few days since the fight, and he's still being frosty to me, waiting for me to apologize, and now I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure if I handled it right. Am I the astronaut? Holy cow. Update 6 days later. After reading everyone's comments, I realized I was in the wrong and I didn't prioritize correctly. I came off pretty defensive at first, but after thinking about what people said, I shouldn't have been. I apologized to my boyfriend and told him nothing like this would ever happen again. He's still pretty mad, but after a serious conversation about setting boundaries between me and this friend, he's willing to move past it. He did say if this happens again or if I cross any boundaries with this friend, then he's gone. So it obviously did affect him more than I thought. I'm willing to respect this and try to consider my boyfriend's feelings more while still being there for my friend. We have rebooked our tickets and dinner for next weekend, and hopefully it can still be special. What I will say is the emergency message I got from my friend at that time didn't have much detail, so I didn't know how serious it was. Obviously, when I got to his place, he was very upset, but it wasn't life and death, and in hindsight, it could have waited until next morning. You think there might have been a reason it was vague? I'm not trying to make any excuses. I just thought some comments were a little harsh. I care for my boyfriend very much, and I'm happy we got this resolved. The comments about my friend's alcoholism made me realize that I needed to give him the resources to help himself, which I will do if he's open to it. I've never had someone I care about deal with an alcohol issue and was a bit naive to think that I could help him without professionals. I spoke to my friend on the phone this morning, and even though he was very defensive, he agreed to meet with me to talk about the next steps for him getting help. His dad is threatening to kick him out of the house, so I think that was a bit of a wake-up call for him. Also, I don't believe my friend had any malicious intent when he asked me for help, and I won't be cutting him off like some of you suggested. I think healthy boundaries to prevent any misunderstandings will do. That's the update for some of you who were asking for one. Relevant comments here. Number 1, I love how you still refer to it as an emergency when it was very evidently not an emergency. More like some guy just wanted her attention and OP just ditched her boyfriend for him. Number 2, I gave her boyfriend a week before he dips. If she would take some accountability, maybe there'd be a chance, but no way the boyfriend continues to tolerate the disrespect. I know I've broken up for less. LOL. Original OP, how am I disrespecting my boyfriend? I apologized and took accountability that I was in the wrong. I agreed when my boyfriend asked to put boundaries between my friend and I, and I've done everything he's asked, so where's the disrespect? We have more. We have another update. My boyfriend just kind of snapped and said, you either never speak to him again or we are done. I stated that's so unfair when literally the day before we were moving on from this and I just want to just come to a compromise. He said he was really hurt that I'm not taking the relationship as seriously as he is. To skip a lot of back and forth, we couldn't agree and decided to break up. I didn't actually think we'd break up over this, so I was kind of shocked, but if he wants to throw our relationship away because of this, then fine. I obviously feel pretty down about it. Before this, we never really had any problems, and now it's over because of some shitty decisions that I apologized for. But then I would feel so guilty if I dropped my friend who's struggling when he's always been there for me, especially during a tough time in my teens. My boyfriend clearly didn't believe in me when I said I would never prioritize anyone over him again. I think what some of you guys said was right. The damage was already done and I didn't want to accept it. It's possible. I tried to speak with my boyfriend the next couple of days, but he didn't want to hear anything I had to say, which made for a very uncomfortable few days living together. I'm going to stay with a friend for 2 days as she was looking for a roommate anyway. A part of me wants to try to reconcile with my ex-boyfriend, but then a part of me knows I should just let it go, and I'm not going to be happy going no contact with my friend, and he's not happy with the friendship. Even if I wanted to go no contact with this friend, it wouldn't have worked as he's in my friendship circle, and he would be at all of our get-togethers and try to talk to me anyway. A part of me is confused about my friend now. He provoked my boyfriend when he knew we were up on rocky grounds. I hate that I'm having to question a friendship that I've had for years, but I did say I would give him the benefit of the doubt this time, and maybe I'll end up regretting what we'll see. However, he's now started AA meetings, which I'm proud of for him, and I'm hoping he sticks with it. He's apologetic about the role he played in our breakup and says he's going to get his shit together and be a better friend to me. Anyway, I think I'm just going to take some time for myself, process everything, and going to be single for a little bit because it's actually too much stress.
Am I wrong for disappearing for a night after my husband ambushed me with an unwelcome surprise? I, 29 female, am no contact with my father. We had a really good relationship when I was a kid, but he cheated on my mother, who already had some mental health issues, and was caught in a pretty damning way. The aftermath was horrible and deeply traumatic. Let's just leave it at that. I had just started college at the time, and basically my whole life fell apart within a week. My father tried to justify it, and I told him that the options were A, immediately break up with the woman he cheated with and go to therapy with me to find out if I could ever forgive him, or B, get out of my life. He picked A, but didn't actually break up with her. I found out because I expected that and that she sucks at covering her tracks, so I haven't spoken to him in a decade and he's essentially dead to me. I miss the dad I had in childhood sometimes, but otherwise I don't regret cutting him off. My older brothers also cut him off shortly after, although one is back to low contact to a degree. My husband comes from a very different kind of family, and the whole situation is mind-blowing for him, largely because his parents are lovely and would never do something like this. He can't imagine things being so bad that you would never just speak to your parent again. We've talked about it a couple of times in the past, and he asked if I would ever reach back out, for closure if nothing else. I said, over my dead body, so I thought he understood. A couple of weeks ago, he asked me to meet him for dinner after work, which we do occasionally. We had just gotten sat down and talked for a minute when my husband said that he had a surprise for me. A minute later, my father walks up to the table. I immediately got up and walked out. They followed me, but I got in my car and left before they could catch up. My phone started ringing, so I just turned it off. I checked into a hotel and set up my work laptop and spent the rest of the evening working because that helps when I'm upset. I didn't turn my phone back on until the next morning and saw I had over 50 missed calls and a bunch of texts and DMs from people trying to contact me. My husband has apologized profusely for the whole thing. Evidently, my father reached out to him some time back and he thought I would change my mind after hearing what he had to say. He was furious with me for just completely disappearing though, because he thought something terrible had happened to me or that I had left him. I told him it served him right for going behind my back and tricking me, but the mutual friends he reached out to see if they had heard from me think I overreacted and I should have let him know that I was safe.
Am I in the wrong for divorcing my wife because our sex life will never be what it used to be? When my wife was pregnant, her libido dropped. I searched around on the internet about it, and apparently it's very common in case of pregnancy and postpartum period, so I didn't push it any further. Then she gave birth and no sex. I waited a year to broach the conversation, because apparently breastfeeding decreases libido too. After a lot of discussions, we went to therapy. Couples therapy was a very different experience to me. My wife was just better at talking about her feelings, so I was advised to go to individual therapy to help me with it. I found a dude, and we hit it off instantly. He is my type of therapist, no BS kind of guy, calls you out on your BS and then accurately explains what's going on. Our couples therapist is a woman and very preachy in the way that she talks. I'm like, get to the point. So a few months into couples therapy, and the conclusion was that I need to manage my expectations regarding sex, that we're not going to be having that much, and that quality of sex that we were once having. So I asked my therapist if I have to manage my expectations, and he said not really. if I don't wanna. He said that there's nothing wrong with having expectations, and if my wife can't meet them, she can't meet them. What I can't do is agree to compromise and then hold it against her head. I thought about it, and I have decided that compromise on sex is not for me. I don't want to be in a relationship that's not sexually satisfactory. I've given 2 years to this relationship. I'm not willing to give more. And it seems like the couple's therapist and my wife are trying to make me be okay with subpar sex life. So I communicated in therapy, and the therapist's response was basically, yes, she's doing what I think she's doing, but I should see it in a positive light because she knows what she's doing and I don't. I told him that the divorce is a good situation here because I'll never be one to manage my expectations. And I told her I'm not willing to give you more money and whether she would do it for free. She didn't say anything, and I just smiled and walked away. I ended our couple's therapy and asked my wife for a divorce. My wife is not happy about it and now wants to work on our relationship. But a relationship without a very good sex life is not a good goal worth fighting for me. She said that she'll work towards it. I said, do it then. It's been 2 days. Nothing has changed really. I mean, she has all the time she needs before the divorce is finalized, so that's that. But I'm not hopeful. I'm giving more to this relationship than I'm getting back from it. It's not sustainable. I think divorce is best for both of us. Am I in the wrong?